The Philadelphia Eagles are headed to the NFC Championship game in 2022 after a 38-7 win in the divisional round over the New York Giants at Lincoln Financial Field. Gino Camilleri and myself, Lou DiBiase, we're going to recap that game coming up on the Locked On Eagles postgame show.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. It's the post-game show, and today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. The Philadelphia Eagles are headed to the NFC title after a 38-7 win over the New York Giants in the divisional round. Gino, man, the emotions are flying right now, but this wasn't like an emotional game where you want to cry after they win the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And, you know, it was a little emotional in that way, but this was more of the 2017 feeling where from the start to finish, it was more like a party, where you're just celebrating play after play because the Eagles just imposed their will on a division rival in their first home playoff game since 2019. And it was their first home playoff win since that NFC title against Minnesota, where it was the exact same vibes. And the fact that the score was exactly the same, 38-7, 5 years on the day of that game. Just, I mean, you can't script that. It's unbelievable, man. What an insane night. And I can't imagine what South Philly is like right now. It's probably buzzing.
Here's the easiest question you'll ever be asked in your life, Lou. Would you ever rather support any of the 31 teams in the NFL outside of Philadelphia?
Look, and that's the thing. I got a little emotional at the end of the game thinking about 2020 and how far this team has come since then, because I remember I looked at Jason Kelce celebrating with Nick Sirianni in the locker room. And I remember 2 years ago, Jason Kelce being on the field at the Link after they lost to Washington. He's with Carson Wentz. He's with Zach Ertz. And you're thinking, here's the end of this golden era where you won a title. You made 3 playoff runs. And who knows when you're ever going to get back to that. And the fact that 2 years later, you are 1 win away from a Super Bowl, it's hard to not get choked up about that. They have come such a long way, and I didn't think this was possible. It's just been such a fun ride.
I never doubt this team until they prove me wrong. And the one quote I keep going back to with this 2022 Philadelphia Eagles team is that if they play their best, they will beat any team in the National Football League. And to come out and do what you did today, after that week off, after solidifying that first round bye, to allow yourself to get healthy, to get key pieces like Jalen Hurts as close to 100% as you could get him to. Same with Lane Johnson, able to get CGJ back in there. You're probably going to get Avonte Maddox back next week. What they did today, Lou, was everything that Nick Sirianni has preached since day one. It's a 1-0 fight. You go in each round and fight your hardest and play your best right out of the gate. That was their identity today, Lou. The first drive, usually they defer. They get the ball after halftime. Today, they come right out.
The first passing attempt is a 40-yard bomb to Devontae Smith.
They go down the field and score. And not only do they score, Lou, they hold the ball for 5 minutes. They convert multiple third downs. Situationally today, they were on top of everything. And it came at the hands of being prepared, scripting up a game plan to play to the strengths of your team. And does Jalen Hurts' passing numbers look all gaudy like you would expect? No, he did exactly what you wanted him to do today, because the identity of this team is running the damn football down anybody's throat that wants it.
And Gino, they're up 21-0 with like 6 minutes to go in the second quarter. So they decided they were already going to start running out the clock. And that's why Jalen Hurts' numbers weren't as sexy as they looked. But trust me, his impact was just as valuable. And that's the thing about this team. The final 3 weeks of the season, the final month, honestly, even that win against Chicago, before Jalen Hurts got hurt, it was definitely shaky. But you finally see a game where the playbook is completely open. Jalen Hurts is running the football. He's healthy. Lane Johnson is back in the lineup. Josh Sweat on the other side of the ball. And this team, look, you got to give them credit for bouncing back and adjusting from that final month. It wasn't their best football heading into the postseason, but that was the football team tonight that we saw for 90% of the season. Hats off to this coaching staff and the players for bouncing back, but also you see when they got their MVP caliber quarterback back and their MVP caliber right tackle, it makes a substantial difference.
I had tweeted out, I believe it was yesterday, that the worst thing the Eagles could do is to box Jalen Hurts into what Washington did with RG3 when he had suffered that knee injury, to make him a quote-unquote stand-in-the-pocket type quarterback, don't use your legs. Boy, did Nick Sirianni let his MVP quarterback let him be himself tonight.
For sure.
That's exactly what you needed to do.
Because he trusts him, Gino. He took care of himself. I mean, there were a lot of plays when he ran the football and he still slid. He didn't take the extra yard or two to make contact. 9 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown. But you're right. He also got the job done and they weren't holding him back.
You couldn't hold him back because the thing that made this entire thing go, he was the Formula One car, as I said. He wasn't just the driver. He was the engine. He was everything. He got all the pistons going right away. Lou, that first drive, he's quite literally perfect.
Yeah, he went
What could you have asked for this guy? Has all these questions, all these naysayers. He is so calm, cool, and collected in the face of pressure. I'm sitting there an hour and a half before the game. I feel like my life is going to end with the anxiety. He goes into that building, his first chance to win a home playoff game, and he does it, man. He capitalizes, does everything great for this team. And it wasn't just your quarterback. It's the play design, the play call, the trust in your weapons, the defense, Lou. Oh my goodness, did they come out flying today? And that was the most reminiscent part of 2017. What that defense was able to do to the Giants offense today, coming off the back of arguably their best performance, they made the Giants offense look like a college football team. I'm sorry, no disrespect to them, but that's what they did.
Gino, that's the most beautiful part of this game. Is it felt a lot like the 2021 wild card game in Tampa Bay, where you look at the Buccaneers and Eagles, and from the jump, the first drive, Tom Brady drives down the field and scores, and you say the Eagles just are not on this level. The fact that just one calendar year later, it's the same kind of situation, but you are on the opposite end of that kind of situation where it's the Giants that you're saying. In the second round of the playoffs, you're feeling like your team is substantially more talented than the other team. That's an incredible feeling, and it shows just how far this team has come, because that literally was the Eagles 1 year ago.
Hats off to everybody in the building. It's a collection of what Howie Roseman did to bring in the right pieces. We look at 2017 and just how perfect it was that today is 38-7 day. And what was so great about 38-7 day was all of the little parts, all of the pieces that Howie Roseman brought in that offseason to put them over that hump to get them to that next level, right, Lou? You talk about the Torrey Smith flea flicker. You talk about the Patrick Robinson interception. Just look at today. James Bradberry against his former team. You can't make this stuff up. Has a huge interception that kept the momentum going in the Eagles' favor. Haason Reddick, who just was bred to be a Philadelphia Eagle. Lou, if you're in that offensive room Monday through Saturday, you know you're playing this team. Who was the one guy that you had to take care of and said, this guy can't ruin our game?
I don't know how you do it, though, because he's getting sacks on the edge. He's getting sacks up the A-gap. I don't know how you stop this ultimate weapon on defense. I mean,
and that's the hardest part about it. He's playing at an elite caliber level.
That's why I wore the conference champions hat today, because it feels like 2017 vibes at home when you dominated the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles felt like a completely superior team to the New York Giants today, and they showed that for all 4 quarters. We will continue to recap the game. The Eagles headed to the NFC Championship for the first time since 2017, a 38-7 win over the New York Giants. This is the Locked On Eagles postgame show.
Before we continue, 38-7 day part 5 years to the date. We have a message from our friends over at Prize Picks. If you are not playing Prize Picks by now, I don't know what you are doing. If you love daily fantasy and don't want to go through the headache of competing against 5,000 people, against all of these computers that have a way better chance than you just playing against yourself. That's exactly what Prize Picks is. It's just you against the Prize Picks projections. You're going to pick 2 to 5 players. I hope you always pick Eagles players, especially Dallas Goedert. Hats off to him and what he did in that game today. And same with Miles Sanders as well. You pick 2 to 5 guys. Do they go over? Do they go under? If you hit on all of them, you'll get 10 times your money on your entry, not only in the NFL. Tomorrow morning, you can wake up and do some daily fantasy on some Premier League soccer. If you want to bet on the NFL games tomorrow, you could do that, as well as NHL, NBA, MLB, but we'll be back soon enough. You can always do it on esports as well. They have everything over at Prize Picks. Make sure you go to prizepicks.com today. Use that promo code at the bottom of the screen, locked on, LOCKEDON, to get 100% bonus match on your deposit. If you put in $100, it's up to $100 as well. If you put in 100, they'll give you 100 as well. $200 to bet on the Philadelphia Eagles next week when they're in the NFC Championship game. Go to prizepicks.com to bet daily fantasy.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. It's the post-game show. The Eagles headed to the NFC Championship game. They are hosting the NFC Championship game after a 38-7 win over the New York Giants. And, there's just so many storylines that we can get into today. We touched on how dominant the defense was, how from the jump, the Eagles offense just stepped on this defense's throats of New York. Jalen Hurts looked like a veteran that's been in the playoffs for decades and not a guy that was in his second playoff game ever, his first home playoff game at 24 years old. There's just so much to get into. And I want to continue with Hurts, though, because everybody knows I think I was wrong on Hurts more than anybody. And I've never been, and, Gino, I think you were a little more optimistic, but you too had skepticism of what the ceiling was for this quarterback. And again, to see that composure, number one, the toughness, because that shoulder was, as we saw reports before the game, he is not still 100%, but you would not know that. You would not know this is a 24-year-old quarterback in his second playoff game ever, the first home game. The composure and the way he handled himself. Yes, this is a inferior defense, but it still had a lot of pieces that beat a pretty good Minnesota Vikings offense last week. For him to do what he did today, not beautiful numbers, right? 16 for 24 for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, 9 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown on the ground. But the game was so out of hand to start that they were conservative in running the football the rest of the way. He didn't have to do much. The fact that he had 3 touchdowns still and was that efficient passing the football and took care of himself, if he had to do more, that was a Jalen Hurts MVP type of game. Just the situation at the end didn't call for him to do as much because he did so much early on in the game. It was an incredible performance, and the numbers won't tell the story.
I thought coming into this game, the way that you lost was that the Giants did what you did on that first drive, and they come out there and they dominate time of possession, and they go out and they get that first touchdown, and they put themselves in those good situational third downs where it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, much like what Washington did in that game to beat the Eagles back then. And one of the things that hurt the Eagles on offense was that they pressed so much and they tried to just get outside of what they were. And they were trying to just pass these one-on-one plays and push the ball down the field when it's like, we could just set up our offense here and run the football, and then we could open up shots down the field. Well, that's exactly what they did today. Yeah, they opened it up with that Devontae Smith shot, but look at what the run game was doing. Everything was working for you. I thought the best play of the day, Lou, I'm going to install this in my freshman high school team next year. When it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, you line up under center. Everybody in the world knows you've run this quarterback sneak all year long to perfection. What do? Boom, tendency breaker. We're going to go Y lead, get Dallas Goedert to go across the formation, pitch the ball out to the running back, have 2 tackle and guard leading the way. Dallas Goedert blows the cornerback out of the play, and you pick up chunk yardage. That's confidence, and that's those things that we saw with Doug Peterson, who 5 years ago, we were saying everything was going right. Just every play call
was the same
went right for
points.
the Eagles today.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's the thing, Gino. We're talking about Jalen Hurts, but the bigger story was the run game. And you look
Without a
at just
doubt.
the clinic the offensive line put up, it's probably more impressive because when you look at the Giants roster, what is the strength of that team? What was the strength last week? It probably is the defensive line, where on the edge you have Azeez Ojulari, you have Kayvon Thibodeau, you have Dexter Lawrence, you have Leonard Williams. That's a pretty damn good young unit. And the Eagles' offensive line made them look like nothing. Jordan Mailata was dominant. Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Sayamalu. Lane Johnson has a torn adduct, and that's got to be impossible to play in. He looks as elite as he did before the injury. I've never seen a tackle maybe as valuable as Lane. The difference this Eagles offense looks with and without Lane Johnson, night and day. And you saw that again. He was battling. There were times he was grabbing, close to his abdomen. You could tell that he was in pain, but he totally erased that defensive line. It was such a clinic from the offensive line. It was a pleasure to watch. And it's just such a luxury the Eagles have had pretty much our entire time being a fan.
It would be interesting to do a case study on if there's ever been a player across 3 different coaching regimes that has had that big of a single impact being in and out of a lineup that Lane Johnson has had.
At a position that I think it's more valuable. It's seen as more valuable now, but people would say like left tackle is more valuable. I don't think there's anybody more valuable than Lane Johnson, maybe outside of Jalen Hurts on that offense.
I think you can't put a price on an offensive lineman who hasn't allowed a sack in nearly 2 calendar years.
Right. In this entire unit, by the way, today, Gino, only 3 pressures allowed. I mean,
insane.
Talk about knowing the situation with Jalen Hurts, a banged up shoulder, and you keep him completely clean.
And hats off to everybody who's involved in that game plan because they didn't put him in that situation. When Jalen Hurts was asked to run today, Lou, it was out of necessity, and he put himself in a spot where he wasn't going to get injured outside of a single play where he wanted to pick up the first down, and that's Jalen Hurts. And that brings us back to when we were tough on him when he was picked all the way back then, that one quality that overcame everything. And I'm so glad Moose Johnston went on a little bit of a soliloquy during the game about just that leadership and that ability that everybody buys into this kid. And like you said, Lou, the offensive line plays that well because they know with him back there, they have a chance to win the whole darn thing. And that's what it looked like today. You kept him healthy. You had a great game plan when you ran the football, which they should just do against everybody. I don't know why in those 3 losses, they just failed to set up the run. They just need to do that all the time because they're better than anybody else in the National Football League.
That's why they should be seen as the favorite in the NFL right now, not just in the NFC, because yes, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals, they can throw on anybody just like the Eagles can, but none of them they have good running attacks for sure. They don't have an elite number 1 rushing attack that the Philadelphia Eagles have, where it's not just the elite offensive line. It's not just your elite mobile quarterback, but then you have a Pro Bowl running back in Miles Sanders who has 90 carries or 90 yards today and has 5.3 yards per carry. And then you look at the giant killer, Boston Scott, 6 for 32. He scores a touchdown. And I didn't even mention the leading rusher of the day, Kenneth Gainwell, 12 carries only, but he has 112 yards, averaging 9.3 yards on the ground and a score. Again, you got to give the credit to the offensive line, but this is just a complete unit from the quarterback, the running backs, and the trenches. They can run. They can do everything, man. I mean, this is, no matter what happens the rest of the way, I will continue to say this is the most talented do-it-all Eagles team I have ever seen.
I would say that it's so eerily similar to 2017 because you look at how good the passing attack was, but what was the thing that just got you through those late months in the season when Nick Foles was still trying to figure out his identity, and even into that divisional matchup against Atlanta.
Jay Ajayi,
LeGarrette Blount, Corey Clement, the 3-headed dragon. Once again, they're doing it, and if not at a higher level than them. Miles Sanders, he looks like a man possessed this season, Lou. They're making it impossible for him to not be a Philadelphia Eagle for the next couple of years with the way he is playing. Boston Scott, you couldn't have written this character in any video game or book or whatever
His
you want.
11th touchdown against the Giants, Gino, all time.
Insane.
He only has 19 total touchdowns. He's scored in literally every game against New York. If you didn't take Boston Scott anytime touchdown today, I don't know what you were doing.
I have no
It's
idea.
the easiest money made in the world.
Yeah, and how did any team let Kenneth Gainwell get to the 5th round and get drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles to go out there and have 112 yards and almost average 10 yards a pop, Lou? It was like he was playing.
I have a Kenny G CD
American Athletic Conference
in my living room.
from Memphis,
Gino,
dude. He was
after the show. After the show, I'm opening a bottle of scotch. I have a Kenny G CD on. I'm going to play some Forever Love and Sentimental, and I'm going to watch those highlights because he and the entire rushing attack and the passing attack completely dominant in that Eagles 38-7 win over the New York Giants. We'll continue to recap it. It's the Locked On Eagles postgame show. And today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here as we watch tonight. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America. It's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and now the Locked On Podcast Network. And this is the Locked On Eagles podcast, the postgame show. The Eagles win 38-7 in the divisional round over the New York Giants, their first home win in the postseason since that 38-7 win in the NFC title 2017 against the Minnesota Vikings. Gino, they win tonight 38-7. It was a party. Like I said, I mean, there were some emotional parts because we've come such a long way over these last 2 years, but this was more just complete excitement and, expected dominance. You look at the Eagles roster compared to the Giants, and they're just clearly a better team, but to actually do it against any team in the second round of the postseason is difficult. And it just shows what a unit Howie Roseman has built, man. I mean, you look at like Haason Reddick. I mean, the most valuable player to me on defense, you just brought in this offseason, took over this game. I mean, everybody did, but to see the additions Howie made this year balling out, like James Bradberry as well, another revenge game that goes the Eagles' way. Hats off to the general manager that I wanted fired 2 years ago, and thank God they didn't do that.
It comes down to the big names, and it comes down to street free agents like Reed Blankenship, who is coming up and just blowing up runs in the alley. And what Howie Roseman has done and how much crap he has got is the ultimate display of perseverance, which I think coincides with several other players on the Philadelphia Eagles story. You look at Brandon Graham and what he did tonight as well. He adds a sack to his repertoire. He just continues to dominate. Fletcher Cox, who has continued to be a focal point. These guys who have just lived the up and downs of what it is to be in Philadelphia and seen the worst of the worst, but understand that when this city and when this team gets behind this franchise, when they are playing their best, there's just something different about the building. I don't know. There, like you said, it was a part. There's just that vibe you get when you turn the game on, and you don't even have to be. I can't even imagine what that feeling was to be in that building tonight. But just sitting at home and you sit back and you say, I tweeted this out during the game, that you looked in Daniel Jones' eyes and it just didn't seem like he wanted to be there. And you look at guys that take free kicks in big time moments and like the World Cup, you could just see it in their eyes. And
I think he knew there was nothing they could do. It looked like a player on Western Kentucky playing.
The game was over when the schedule came out that they were playing the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's the thing. Like the Eagles pass rush completely wrecked this game. Haason Reddick, a sack and a half today. Fletcher Cox, a sack. Josh Sweat, also 1.5 sacks, returning from that neck injury. The defensive line made the Giants' offensive line look silly, but the secondary too. I mean, the Giants just, again, they're just not ready to play a team as talented as the Eagles, where Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton are going up against, James Bradberry and Darius Slay, and the interception leader is in the slot. It's just, hats off to the Giants for a great year, but it felt like they knew they had gone as far as they could.
The bell curve between good and great.
Yeah.
This was the Eagles last year. They were a good football team. They put together some good
And again,
runs.
the Giants are a good football team. You don't go on the road against Minnesota and beat them and not be good.
And you start 7-2. That's an accomplishment in and of itself. And I was terrified going into this game. I thought the Giants could give them a true run for their money if they set it up and got things going. But from the jump, it's like a horse race. If that horse gets out of the gate hot and he just gets out into the stretch and he's in full stride, nobody's going to beat him. That's what the Eagles did today. When Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and the offensive line and your running backs and everybody on defense is just playing a step ahead of the opponents, and that's what it was. They were just flying to the football, doing all the little things well. Even on special teams, they weren't allowing the Giants to get past the 25-yard line. Hats off to Brett Kern, who pins the Giants within their own 15 multiple times in this game. You talk about every little detail mattering. It felt like the penalties weren't there situationally. The turnovers weren't there situationally. All the things that got you into those precarious positions the last month and a half of the season, you corrected today. And that's the difference between good to great. What it takes to get to great is being able to clean that up, taking accountability and figuring out what we did wrong in adversity and getting over the hump. And that's what the 2017 Eagles did. That's what most of those early 2000s Eagles teams did, was they found their weak point and found a way to play through it. Lou, there's no weak point of this football team when they play their best. And we saw that today on full display.
100%. And I think the way the Giants lost too definitely adds insult to injury when you talk about who stepped up for the Eagles. Devontae Smith leads the team in receiving, 6 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. Definitely set the tempo on that second play with that, 35-yard bomb on the first passing play. I mean, that's the player that the Giants wanted and the Eagles move up to get him. Boston Scott scores a touchdown. He's the giant killer. Their defensive coordinator this week said he wasn't the giant killer, and then Scott goes out there and scores against him.
That's a shame.
And then the corner they released this year with pretty much no right kind of logic towards it, has an interception and makes some really nice tackles in the open field and has a couple other pass deflections in James Bradberry. For the Giants as well, those storylines, it definitely hurts a little bit more. I think it adds a little more insult to injury, which is great against a division rival. I'll take that every time.
And I want to give the Giants all the credit in the world for what they did to get to this spot. And Brian Daboll is going to set them up in a good position. And I know people were clowning a little bit on Brian Daboll tonight, but man,
I don't blame Daboll at all. I think he took this team way farther than I expected.
There's just the old saying, like the immovable force. That's what the Eagles are right now. They are meeting teams that were the Eagles last year, that they were good. They put together some stretches. They had individual performances that stood out along the way. And when they put it all together, they were able to compete with some good teams. But when it came to competing with those Super Bowl caliber teams, the team that we aspired to get back to after 2017 and that drop off in 18, 19, 20, 21, and here we are today in 22, the turnaround to get here and the understanding of what it takes to get over that hump. Because some franchises, they never understand what it is to get to good, to great. Yeah. They never get there. And the Eagles, for the longest time, they were in that pit of mediocrity.
And they don't know how to get out of when you have it and then you lose it.
Exactly.
A lot of teams don't know how to get it back. It's unbelievable that they're doing it almost the exact same way they did in 2017. And that was seen as an improbable run in story. And they're doing it again. The exact, like everything you talked about with Howie Roseman, how far he's come, and how in 2020 we thought this roster had no clear path
forward
to getting back to this team. We thought it was going to be 5 to 7 years before we were talking about winning a Super Bowl again. And the fact that you're 2 years later, 1 win away, the fact that they're doing this twice in 5 years is just unbelievable. And it's a completely new team. I know it's Howie Roseman again, and there are some veterans still, but there's only a few guys still. I mean, I felt so old today seeing Malcolm Jenkins, Torrey Smith, and Brent Selk as honorary captains. It's a brand new era.
I don't know what more to say, that there's just something special with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think that's the best way you can say it, Gino.
And what they did tonight was just another step. What Jalen Hurts said after the game was that they have to go finish. That's what they did today. They put together a 60-minute performance where they played from start to finish, all the way down to Josh Jobe even getting some flowers at the
It was
end.
a nice hit.
Lighten up a wide receiver from the Giants. Everybody in the building has to be bought in for 60 minutes each and every week. We'll find out who the Eagles get to host in the NFC Championship game next week, Lou. Fly, Eagles, fly. What more to say? I love this franchise, man. Go Birds.
Don't be mad, but go Cowboys. Go Niners. Who are you rooting for tomorrow?
I would just want to see a good football game because whoever's going to come into Philadelphia next week, they're going to
I like that confidence. I'll take that answer.
Behavior.
I'll take that
Eagles,
answer.
Man.
The Philadelphia Eagles are hosting the NFC Championship next week with a chance to play in the Super Bowl in Arizona in 3 weeks. We've got you covered all day, every day for a show Monday through Friday on all podcast platforms. Just subscribe to Locked On Eagles on YouTube as well in video form. And make sure you hit us up on Twitter. Let us know how you're feeling about this run right now at Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. As always, thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insight you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your shows. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase. Enjoy your night, however you celebrate this win, 38-7, the Eagles over the Giants. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.